Almost every member of the Human Rights Campaign, the nation's largest gay political group, would agree that 2008 was a promising election year. Barack Obama won the White House. Democrats gained control of both houses of Congress. But today, more than a year later, gay rights issues like marriage equality and don't ask, don't tell languish on Capitol Hill. Still looking to the president and Congress for answers, many are asking the HRC what happened to Yes We Can. As the Advocate's Washington correspondent Kerry Eleveld finds, the answer to that question depends entirely on whom you ask.
The Human Rights Campaign is the LGBT community's most prominent national organization, commanding about a $35 million budget. But in its 30-year history, it's never been put to the test like this. With solid Democratic majorities in both chambers of Congress, a president who ran hard on an LGBT equality platform, and unparalleled access to the White House, the question is, can they deliver?
One of the problems HRC has is a problem Democrats always have, or any political party has when they change power. Meaning, if you're in the minority and you go to the majority, how do you start acting like you're in the majority now in Congress? You can no longer, in the minority in Congress, you block legislation. That's pretty much what you do. In the majority, you have to actually push legislation. And it's a totally different job. And I think for HRC, they've had the last, whatever it was, 14 years that the Republicans were in power in Congress, certainly 8 horrible years of Bush being in power in the White House, and they were, understandably, and I defended them on this, they were trying to stop bad things from happening. Now, we control the Congress, we have 60 votes in the Senate, we control the White House, we shouldn't be acting from a position of defense. And I think as a community, the White House thinks that that's how we should be acting, and I think to some degree HRC isn't being offensive enough.
Joe Solmonese has led the organization since 2005.
What do you see as HRC's role within the greater LGBT movement right now?
I see ourselves at a very unique place, at a moment when all of us, HRC most especially, needs to be as strategic as possible, as accountable as possible to every member of our community, and to be almost laser focused in what I call closing these very important deals.
But perhaps most pressing right now is an ambitious legislative agenda that includes passing employment non-discrimination protections and repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the Defense of Marriage Act, among other things. And many LGBT Americans are counting on HRC to follow through.
What I worry about is, looking at where we are 1 year into the Obama administration, not a lot has happened. And much worse than that, a lot of bad things have happened, like the administration's ongoing support for DOMA in the courts, and then filing a brief that invoked incest and pedophilia and crazy things like that. And HRC, I don't want to say they're responsible for it, but they're the only gay adult in the room.
I think they're focused on their mission. I think they work for LGBT equality, they work for the movement, and I think they feel that responsibility really strongly. At the same time, I don't think it's an indictment because somebody respects them enough to want to strategize with them behind closed doors. That to me is something we should all be proud of.
Accomplished writer and LGBT activist Larry Kramer has fought for LGBT equality since the onset of the AIDS crisis in the 80s and is perhaps best known for founding the strident AIDS activist group ACT UP in 1987.
Do you believe that the Human Rights Campaign is relevant today?
No. I don't think it's actually been relevant since it was founded.
What's disappointed you most, do you think?
What wouldn't HRC be capable of doing if they held the system as accountable as we did to get what they want? I don't even know what they want. No, I do not think it would make any difference if HRC disappeared tomorrow.
What if HRC didn't exist? Can you imagine what the movement would look like without it?
In light of the fact that HRC is so involved at all levels of sort of the legislative process, whether it's making sure that members are hearing from constituents in their own districts who are asking them to vote a certain way and persuading them, whether it's the professional lobbying they do through their staff here in Washington, or the research they do, because they do a tremendous amount of research that furnish us with the tools that we need to persuade our fellow members of Congress. We would be much further behind if we didn't have those resources that HRC provides.
While some activists charge that HRC's relationship with the White House is too cozy,
Human Rights Campaign President Joe Solmonese sees it differently.
I see us as having a strong working partnership with the administration. I certainly saw that during the passage of the hate crimes bill, but I also see us speaking out against the administration and criticizing the administration when it's necessary. Two of the most high-profile, pointed, and sharp criticisms of this administration over the course of the last year came from HRC. During his decision to ask Rick Warren to give the invocation at the inaugural, and during the administration's decision to defend DOMA.
I think the DOMA brief is a good example. After several days, HRC did finally issue a letter. The letter was fine. It wasn't incredibly strong, but it wasn't bad either. But it did take a while for it to come out. What was more problematic about what happened with the DOMA brief was approximately 5 days after the issue had exploded and was really gathering momentum, Joe Solmonese went to the White House and stood there behind the president in a photo op that the White House had prepared absolutely positively to appease the community. That's how it works in this town. If you're getting attacked by a group, you try to get the friendly members of that group to stand up with your guy on camera to show, oh, well, look, he's standing with the Latinos, he's standing with the gays, so obviously the gays like him, so everything's okay. What did we get in return? The president went to the HRC dinner.
It is my great honor to introduce to you the President of the United States, Barack Obama.
Whenever the president speaks on the record, in public, in support of LGBT equality, it is a huge boost. He's the leader of the free world, and he has a podium. And when he addresses issues of equality, it carries weight.
My response would be, what was new about what the president said at the HRC dinner? He recommitted to do everything he already promised and hasn't done, and everything he's already promised and has backtracked on. Even more important, one of the big problems about the HRC dinner was people in the community wanted the president to speak out about the upcoming votes in Maine and Washington State on marriage and domestic partners. He didn't say a damn thing about either one.
If someone from the White House were here right now, I think they would probably say he did signal that he was against discrimination.
An African American opposes discrimination. Let's, stop the presses and print 6-inch headlines.